Hello, this is Rumbird. So I'll be ranking 5 different methods of how to run Linux on a Chromebook. So over here you can see the first solution, which is the built-in Linux solution. For this solution, I rank it around 5 in setup since it's pretty easy to set up. Most beginners should be able to do it as long as they look up a YouTube tutorial or follow the online search of how set up Chromebook on Linux. The accessibility is like a 5 because most Chromebook devices could use it. And for how good it is as a Linux solution, I say it's a 3 since it's good enough for most beginners. You should be able to download most of your Linux software. However, it struggles if your computer doesn't have much space. So if your Chromebook has very little space, I don't recommend this. And since it's made by Chrome, there's some niche cases where it doesn't work. Now, I'll be going over the second one. It's remote desktops. So a remote desktop allows you to get the full Linux experience, so there won't be any niche problems you'll have. It's similar to a VirtualBox. So if you could get a VirtualBox on a Chromebook, well, you can, but your space will have some problems. So I recommend a remote. It might be a little less taxing on the Chromebook itself. For the solution, I give it around a 4, since it works as a great Linux solution, but you have to have another device that can use Linux. So it's not great in terms of accessibility. So for the third Linux solution on our list, it's Crouton. I have to rank this as a 5 in terms of actually how well it performs, and I have to give it a 1 in terms of how easy it is to set up. All the other ones are 5s in how easy it is to set up. So this one, while it is one of the hardest solutions for Linux to set up, in my opinion, it's the best because so the reason why is because it actually lets you do an entire root system of Linux on your computer, and you can switch between the Linux and Chromebook whenever you want. So you have both. You're not stuck with just a Chromebook. So it's like a better version of dual boot. While it's not exactly, since the Linux system can't use systemd, but everything else about it, it's perfect, and it's a lot more lightweight compared to the normal Linux solution that's the default. With that, I have to give some warnings. So when you set up developer mode, you're going to delete all your data on your Chromebook, so make sure to save your computer data beforehand. And when you start going to the terminal, make sure to follow the steps on the GitHub. I recommend you to try going onto YouTube for this, because if you watch it beforehand, don't watch it while you're doing it, because that could cause some bugs. You might end up breaking it. Also, make sure to see if your Chromebook could run this. Well, I assume most Chromebooks could. For me, I managed to get my Chromebook to work on it, and I was able to code Linux happily ever after. Number 4 is using the cloud. So I found online that you could use a cloud service provider over here in order to run Linux. You can see some videos on how to use the cloud to run. So there's some cloud providers that allow you to run Linux. So that's my 4th solution. I wouldn't recommend. I give this around a 3 out of 5, since while it is free, cloud service providers at any moment, it's dependent on the cloud service provider. So I wouldn't recommend on doing this unless you're on you don't want to install anything on the Chromebook you're right now currently using. So a school Chromebook. More a case of shopping around for your cloud service provider, because you could also use Linode to run a virtual environment for you to access from another place. So for remote desktop, it's a catch-all term for anything that you could use cloud services to run Linux and access it on your Chromebook. So OnWorks is not the only solution. There's other ones like Linode. Just search online. You should probably be able to find one pretty easily. The only downside I see of this solution is, well, it's cloud, so I wouldn't trust it 100% because it's not like on your computer itself. But Chromebooks don't have much power, so it's a pretty good solution for a Chromebook. Number 5. So if you're an actual like Linux tryhard, I recommend you to try downloading the Linux firmware and overriding the Chrome software itself. This will cause 0 bugs that happen regarding the Linux system, but you're going to go fall into the deep end for Linux. So this is mostly for like experienced users. I give this a 5 for actually using Linux, but for beginner friendliness, this is definitely like a 1. You could use this to like download. Make sure when you're doing this to get the Chromebook recovery image. So you need the image and the Chromebook recovery firmware. Firmware is so you can download Chromebook again, and the recovery image is so you could like get all the non-essential files, like get the files back into the Chromebook. So the image itself is not everything about the Chromebook. It's like the bare bones that you need for your like files and stuff, but doesn't cover the entire environment itself. So that's the end of my video for all of them. So for the final summary of my opinions, I give the Crouton a number 1 for anybody who wants to use Chromebook alongside Linux. But for using like just downloading a Linux software, I recommend the default Linux solution. And for actually getting Linux on your Chromebook and you don't care about the Chrome OS, literally just download the firmware. I don't care what you do with it's just better to do that. No need to like keep the Chromebook on there, Chrome OS on there. Oh yeah, the cloud solution for adding for Linux on Chromebook. In some cases, you could probably set it up to run on a school computer, theoretically, but that's it. Done.